What is up to all the difference makers out there? We're out. Episode number 95, and I am so pumped. When am I not excited about our guests? I have so many difference makers on the show, but if you've not heard me say, if you've listened to my show, you've heard me say this quite a few times. If you give me the honor of listening to me more, you'll hear this a million more times. The value of your relationships, those are the most important things in the world. And I love tracing back and realizing, like, how do you meet really good people? How do you meet really good connections? I had this friend when I was really struggling when I was younger that came into my life at the right time, and he was amazing, but then he connected me to so many amazing people. It was like my circle of friends, they all became entrepreneurs and they thought different, and they helped me break out of a victim mindset. And it was just that one guy that introduced me to a sea of people that thought completely different than anybody I'd ever met before. And so it's like through life, I've traced back, like when I meet really awesome people, it's like, who introduced me to that person? Because those people can connect you to so many amazing people. So what's awesome is I met Karyl Eckerle about 5 years ago. It was 5 years ago in June, and it'll be 5 years in June. And I totally forgot about this amazing lady that when I first started my business 5 years ago would connect me to so many incredible people. And I haven't heard from her in a long time. And this is going to spark me to reach out to Rachel Olson. Like, Rachel, if you're listening, I'm reaching out to you because I want to know what's going on. But the other day I was talking to a friend who of course knows Karyl because like the world is connected like this. And she was like, Karyl doesn't remember how she met you. And I'm like, oh my God, I usually know so I had to trace it back. I had to go back to like emails in my CRM and be like, oh my God, it was Rachel back in June of 2018. But what's really cool is I had just started my business, and I don't know if Karyl knows this or not, but I had just started my business and I was so like unconfident with what I was doing. I remember sitting down, we were at the coffee shop down the street, and I was asking her, cause she was out already speaking and doing things. And I was asking her like what she was charging, and she asked me what I was charging for my fee. And I think I said like $250. And I remember she looked at me really dead cold. She was probably one of the first people to be really honest with me. And she was like, you might as well be free. She's like, if you don't charge a certain level, you might as well be free because they're going to look at you like you don't have any kind of value. And that was like a big wake up call for me. It changed my whole entire perspective. And that was really where I started to grow and climb. So I've always appreciated and valued Karyl. What's so awesome though, is I've been able to watch through 2020 and through the COVID and everything, and watch her really pivot and transition her business and take it off. And we haven't caught up. And then some other things happened. And so I'm just really, really excited to catch up with Karyl. And so you're going to hear this live. This is like, we're sitting down. This is a true intention of coffee and grit. We're just sitting down. We don't have coffee on us because it's mid-afternoon, but like just sitting down for coffee, catching up with a friend, and you're going to get so much value out of this. I promise. So Karyl, welcome to Coffee and Grit.
Hello, Jason.
Welcome to Brighton. Welcome to the studio.
Welcome to the studio. So fun to hear the introduction because I didn't realize that you were so green. And I remember that conversation because somebody had said it to me also. You know, when you start speaking or you start, moving into different directions of your business, you don't know what you don't know.
Yeah.
Right. And so it was the little forthright gift I could give to someone else.
And it was so appreciative. It was one of those things. And again, so many people, you meet with people and they don't want to tell you, they don't want to like tell you have something in your teeth, right?
Right.
And like, I thought like you didn't hesitate. You gave me that advice really, really quickly. And it was something I appreciated, and then it was like, it changed that mindset because I was so like, oh my God, I hope they can afford me. Yeah. And if I say this, if I say $300, I hope that they don't like,
right. They won't want me at all.
But then it was like, you gave me permission. It was like, well, Karyl said.
Yeah, I wish my boys would think that way.
We all wish that our kids would take the advice from us like strangers do.
Exactly. Well, it's great to see you again, and it has been a long time. And the other thing I remember, I think this is the last time we got together. Do you remember we went to coffee outside in the sun? It was a gorgeous day. But we just kept talking and talking and talking. The next day, we're like, I am sunburned. How about you, Jason? Yep, my neck is burned to a crisp.
I was a lobster, just straight up lobster. We were in South Lyon at this coffee shop, and it was like 3 hours past, and we were just baking. And we were talking so much that it was like, I didn't realize how much the sun was baking us.
Yes. We were as red as your sweatshirt.
As red as my shirt.
But we had a good time.
I can't believe that we let so much time pass in between. And I know we've reached out several times, like, hey, let's get together. And then just we're both life happens. That's the way it is.
Well, yeah. And, you know, I mean, so much of what's happened in the past couple of years is the intent is there. And then things would literally get shut down, or somebody would get sick, or, you know, life was happening so quickly that it was hard to change on the fly, but you had to.
You had to, yeah.
You had to, yeah.
Yep. Yeah. Well, and I think that's what's cool is the people that were able to change on the fly are the ones who were able to grow or create or build. I've seen so many people that didn't exist. Their businesses didn't exist. Their idea didn't exist before 2020 that now have growing, thriving businesses because of that.
Yeah, I love that. And you know, it was funny because pivot became that overarching word, right? Kind of ad nauseum. But at the same time, it was so perfect for the time, because if you couldn't do that, and you weren't willing to do it, I don't know where some of those people are now. And that's a bummer, because there were some great thriving businesses that just couldn't make it because they were afraid to go outside the comfort zone.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes. So tell me, what was that journey like for you?
Well, first of all, and I'm going to give a shout out to somebody else that I think you know too, and that's Dan Bennett. And Dan Bennett is just a phenomenal video guy. And he had already, the timing was strangely perfect, right? So I had a home office and I wanted to look better on camera. And so Dan had already come to my office and shown me how to set up lighting and everything, and camera, microphone, all that good stuff. So when things happened and we pivoted, my background is image and personal brand, right? So first impressions are a big deal. And when you're on camera, it's a big deal. And because Dan had taken me through that journey, one of the first things I did was notice how people were showing up on camera on Zoom, because we had to use this platform. And it was a shit show.
Yeah. Yeah.
It got pretty bad, right? So I'm trying to remember what I called it, but I started doing complimentary, even though we were just talking about charging. But sometimes when you are doing complimentary events for the people that are your target audience, that's a whole different thing, right? That's a whole different thing. So we're going to talk about that. But I started doing these events about looking good on Zoom and the 5 steps that you could take to maximize, you know, your impact. And they were really well received. And that was kind of the start of it. So what I started doing was listening to what people weren't saying and just observing and trying to see where people were struggling, right? Yep. So that really gave me kind of the foundation of what to do to move differently. LinkedIn became such a huge platform. It was already huge. It was a big, major part of my business. Yeah. And started, you know, moving my clients into that platform more and more as well. So it was just it was a time literally to observe, try and be on the edge of what was next and what people needed, and then just not afraid. You know, you could, back up. You can be afraid. So Ann Bonnie is another good friend of mine. She's a wonderful speaker, and she will tell you it's having the courage to be comfortable with uncomfortable. I think that's the way that she says it. And that's kind of what had to happen, is that, you know, here, this is a whole different experience. Nobody knows what's going on. But if you just sit back and do nothing, nothing's going to come your way.
The thing is, the fear and the uncertainty was there no matter what.
Yeah.
If you're sitting back and doing nothing, you're probably even more scared, because you're not doing anything to change it. Now life is just happening to you.
Yeah, exactly. And taking the steps to move yourself forward in any way possible. I mean, quite frankly, you're going to fail. I mean, that's just part of the journey, right? I mean, if you're afraid you're going to fail, then you might as well just give it up right now, because it is a thing. We're all going to fail. But that means, you know, this is ad nauseum too, I'm sure. When you fail, then you get to move forward a little bit faster, because you know the steps to take, right? Yeah. And that was just such a unique time, because so many things were uncertain. So many people were sitting back and doing nothing, that those of us that decided that we would move forward had an advantage, really. Yep. You know, and I mean, you don't want to have an advantage because of somebody else's misfortune, but we were all going through the same thing. Yes. So. And
we all had a choice.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. You can be a doer, you can be an observer, you can be a little bit of both, but you have to do something. You have to move forward.
Well, and as you're seeing it, obviously the way the world was, everybody's going virtual, everybody's doing Zoom. And then also you look at sales in small business, all of a sudden there's no more network meetings.
Yeah.
You're not going out and meeting in person. And so how do you meet people?
Yeah.
How are you going out and building your brand when you're not having those typical things that entrepreneurs are doing?
Right. And so that's where LinkedIn became such a humongous game changer, because water cooler conversations aren't happening in person, right?
Yeah.
So it means that you have got to be tactical and strategic in how you're going to do that. And so those conversations started happening on LinkedIn. And you can't just throw content up at the wall on LinkedIn and hope things are going to happen. That's not what it's about, right? You have to make sure that you're showing your thought leadership and all that good stuff. But on the back end, you have to work LinkedIn so LinkedIn will work for you, meaning that you've got to reach out and have those conversations. You got to take them offline.
Yes.
You have to do all those things. It's like getting out of your chair and going to the coffee maker,
it's relationship
right?
building.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. But you have to make the effort. If you are, when we're all in person, if you go to your office and you sit in your desk and you never get up and you never go anywhere else, you're not going to meet people. And that's the same way as on LinkedIn. So that was a huge major part. And then again, getting good on Zoom so that when you take those conversations offline and you jump on Zoom, are you all fuzzy?
Yes.
Are you standing out? Are you memorable because you took the time to show up with confidence? Or was there something distracting happening and that, now they're distracted by some strange thing going on and they're not listening to you anymore?
Well, and so you're even just talking about the distraction of the other person. Think of how much your confidence is damaged. Because I've had this happen. Your internet moves slow, something happens with the technology, and all of a sudden now you're in a position of playing defense. You're apologizing. You're not at your full confident self. If you're job interviewing, if you're doing a presentation, you're now in a losing position.
Right. So, as a tactic to kind of manage that a little bit, you do all the things that you can on a regular basis so people get to know you at a certain level, right? You're really consistent. So when something goes wrong, because it is going to, it's not so hard to temper, right? It's not so hard to accept that because they know in a general way that you present yourself here, right?
Yeah.
So if something dips a little bit, it's not that horrible. But if you're always like this, there's no consistency at all. That's when people start freaking out a little bit. They're like, I don't know what to expect from her or him.
Yep.
I don't really want to waste my time, jumping on a call.
So you were talking about and it's not just showing up and creating content, putting content out there, posting it, but then not having those relationship building pieces, having those conversations. You've got to do that piece or you can't have one without the other. You have to brand, you have to do this because then that makes people feel like they know you, that kind of thing. But then you have to actually take that next step to get to know them, right?
Exactly.
For them to actually get to know you.
Yeah. Yeah. Again, it's, you can't just throw content out there and just say, oh, okay, well, it's all, because literally that's all about you, right?
Yes.
Even if your content is helping other people, but if you're not doing anything on the back end to explore the relationships and make comments and things like that, it's a mess. And it's funny because I have kind of an analogy that I use, especially with new clients. And one of those things is that when somebody posts, I'm sorry, let me back up. When you put a post out on LinkedIn or any social media, and somebody likes their post, it's kind of like they're saying, hey,
Yes.
And if they comment,
yes,
it's like, so first of all, when you put your post up, you've opened the doors to your business.
Yes.
And when they comment, it's like they've come through your doors and said, hello. And if you don't do anything, you don't comment back and you don't even like their comment, it's like you've just completely ignored them.
Yeah.
And you've just wasted a huge chance, And
then why'd you even post?
Yeah, exactly. And I remember that happened to me during the pandemic, I think. And somebody made had a post about, what's your favorite sport or whatever. And of course, mine is hockey. We all know that. But so I was happy to, first of all, to have a chance to comment on something for a person that I was interested in getting to know a little bit better. And I thought, this is a great in.
Yeah.
And so I posted, and I didn't just say hockey. I created a comment that was, worthwhile reading, I thought. Yeah. And this person did nothing. They didn't like it. They didn't acknowledge it. They did nothing. And I thought, wow, you know what? I'm not really sure that I would want to move forward with this person because now I look at them as being self-centered.
Yep.
And, that's a bummer for that person because that could not be the case at all. But that's where my mind went. And that's where, what for image and personal brand, that's what you have to be so careful of because people are creating a story for you. And if you're not taking care of that message and you're not helping to create it and lead the way, they're going to make up whatever they want. And that might not be the story that you're interested in having.
People will fill in the story.
Yeah.
They're not, they solve the mystery and they move on, right? They must be too busy. They must not care. They must be sloppy. They must be lazy. They must be whatever it is. You fill in the blank, they make that assumption.
Yeah. And it could be totally not true, but that's human nature.
Absolutely.
I mean, that's the way our brains are wired, right?
Yeah.
And we're either going to move forward with somebody or we're not going to, dependent on what that interaction has been.
And for me, some of the best relationships I built were from those comment sections, especially during the pandemic. Is like meeting so many people. I spent all my time on LinkedIn, and so just going through there, I had this one particular person. I tell this story all the time, and I love how aligned we are because I use this as an analogy all the time. Being in retail, I'm like, it's like walking in a retail. They walked into your store, and it's like they walked into your store and you didn't say hi,
right?
And so they walked around and nobody talked to them. And so they left and they're never going to come back again. And then they're going to tell their friends, oh, don't go into that store. Nobody talks to you.
Exactly.
Like it's the same exact thing. When they walk into your store and they leave a comment, like something engaged them and poked them to emotionally to make that comment. And so I would always respond, but then personal message, hey, thank you so much for sharing your contribution to this post, whatever it was. And then I'd invite them to a meeting. In this one particular time, it was like I knew it was working because I got on this call and the first thing this person said, and my listeners have heard this story over and again, so I apologize. She was like, oh my God, you're real. And I was like, yeah. Like, I was like, what do you mean? I was like, what do you mean? She was like, you don't understand. She's like, I've been watching your content for weeks. She was like, I've been watching your videos. Like some people watch like their favorite actors on Netflix. And so now I'm watching, now we're talking and we're having a conversation. And as embarrassing as it was, I just popped out of my mouth like, oh my God, I'm talking to you. You're real. Yeah. Like, what does that do to your brand when you're reaching out to your fans? What do you do, when you're having those conversations? We still have a relationship to this day. That was, 3 years ago.
Yeah. And it's funny because even though we haven't done this in 3 years, I still consider you a top person in my sphere.
Yeah. Well, we've constantly communicated.
Yeah. And you have to do that. You just have to keep up. And it's interesting too. I just finished working with a client that literally, I think we traced it back to about 4 years ago. We met on LinkedIn, had a couple discussions about working together, but it wasn't the right timing. She wasn't really showing up on LinkedIn very often, but at Christmas, she posted something and I commented on her post because it was really endearing and engaging. And then I took it offline and just wrote her a personal message and the timing was perfect. And, all this, 4 years just flew by. She just came in last week. We had a fantastic time. We did VIP days, which is a whole thing where I literally am spending an entire day with a client or 2 days. Oh. And it was great because we already had somewhat of a relationship, without ever meeting. So it was really fun when she came in, but it would never have happened if A, she hadn't posted. Yes. And B, I hadn't commented and then taken it offline. And at the same time, she was taking it offline. So it's almost like, the stars aligned and we met. But that's what you have to do. You have to make an effort. If you're not willing to make an effort, then you're going to miss out on a lot.
And it was so easy. You talked about earlier, maybe I don't even want to talk to that person, right? Or maybe I don't want to even go down the road with that person. Yeah. Like it made it so easy to disqualify people. Yeah. Like I didn't go around chasing people. The people that were like, yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Let's connect. And I just made it really simple. I took a Calendly link and it's my sales, the backbone of my sales process is like just my relationship building process is here's a link, make it easy. Yeah. Because how many people do you lose? Just back and forth of like what day works for you,
Yes,
afternoon,
yes.
just here, find a time. And like, everybody I send it to, just schedule something.
Right. It's so funny because I didn't listen to my own advice today. Because I was busy and trying to get everything done. And normally I'm really good at that. Like, same thing. I'll send you a calendar link. I'll say, for convenience sake, grab the date and time that, works for you. If there's something else, whatever. But I always try and, you're the sales guru guy. You have to make the next appointment, right?
Yes.
Don't leave without making an appointment. And I was texting back and forth with this person. And I said, do you have time, to jump on a call this week? And normally I would send at least a couple dates, and I didn't do it. And right now, as we're talking, I'm like,
oh no.
and I know this person relatively well, so I will follow up. But why, Karyl? Why?
But that's a cool thing to bring up because like, it's one of those things. One, maybe you missed somebody's message and like that you missed a comment and you didn't respond to it. And this person's out there thinking you don't respond, or I've missed messages that have been in my LinkedIn. And this happened where I'm going through and I see a message that was a year ago. And I'm like, oh my God, I never replied to this.
Yeah.
Like you're a difference maker. If you suck it up, take the pride and be like, hey, I missed this.
100%.
Oh my God, egg on my face. I wanted to let you know, hey, I am still here.
Yeah.
And it, most of the time it leads to conversation because everybody's like, oh my God, that happens to me too.
Well, we're not perfect. That's not going to happen, but that's so true. And this was another one that happened actually today has been a weird day, but I had a phone call scheduled with somebody and, I sent a Google link, Google Calendar link, and she X'd it. Like she wasn't coming. And I thought, I'm really disappointed. I thought, well, I'm not going to just let that go. I'm going to reach out to her and I'm going to ask if there's a better time. I'm so glad that I did because she said, oh my gosh, I didn't mean to do that. I was trying to change the color of the thing and I crossed it off. I crossed it off.
Yeah.
And had I not taken that extra step and then I didn't show up to the call.
And she's like, she thinks it's you.
Exactly. So, this is kind of a funny conversation. I had no idea we were going to talk about this.
That's what I love about this. Yeah.
But it's the little extra things that you do. If you just say, oh, it's not worth it. Oh, I don't want to. Then don't be surprised when nothing happens.
Right.
And it's hard because, what do they say? How many touches does it take before,
like
you actually
it used to be 5 to 8. Now they say like 12 to 15.
Yeah. And our emergency is not somebody else's emergency. So their intent may still be to move forward with you, but you're not top of mind because they have a whole business that they're taking care of, right?
That's my favorite thing working with salespeople is like they have this psychology. Like, I don't know why they're not getting back to me. Like, this person, and they have this like built up because they're filling in the holes, right?
Yeah.
Like, no, what is that person really going through? Like, they've got all these responsibilities, they've got all these things, and you're this priority to them.
They're stuck on Salesforce,
Yeah, and it's understanding that. How do you make them a higher priority, or how do you make yourself a higher priority? But like, you have to understand what their psychology, what are they going through?
Right.
Once you understand, have empathy for what they're going through, it helps you understand and communicate with them better.
Yeah, absolutely. And they're appreciative when you move forward.
Yes.
And I know that's how I work. So if I have a couple people trying to reach out to me and I have somebody that is consistent in a way that's respectful and that I've asked for, that goes a lot further than somebody that's a cold, assumptive, oh, you must be on a cruise ship because you haven't answered me.
That's the worst.
No, I'm not on a cruise ship.
There was one guy that stood me up twice, and I left a message like, I hope you're okay. I hope that there wasn't an next, but it was like the second time.
Yeah,
so
I'm fine. Just busy. But I do appreciate that. I do appreciate when people follow up, but I don't care for the guilt. Don't guilt me.
Yeah.
And again, this all rolls back to image and personal brand, right?
Yes.
So, if you are taking that tactic where it's a guilt show, then you're misfiring on how you're putting yourself out there.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
It's being empathetic. It's understanding because we've all been in this situation where we've had to reschedule a meeting first off.
Yeah. I did it to you.
Yeah. Exactly. Well, yeah. And then anyways. Yeah.
But yeah, there's so many different ways you can go. And I love, for you, and can I turn this around and ask you a question?
Yeah, absolutely.
Oh, excellent. This is so much fun.
I love that when that happens, actually. Yeah.
Well, I want to know what has happened in the sales world and in your business with that pandemic. How did you guys shift? What were you seeing from companies?
So it was that same thing of a lot had changed. So seeing all this stuff happening, and I panicked at first of like, oh my God, I'm a coach serving small businesses, and all these businesses, like half my clients got shut down,
right.
Right at the beginning, like their businesses are shut down. You can't operate, which is so crazy to think about. I forget about this stuff thinking about it. Not, like I didn't think we'd ever forget about the stuff that happened during the pandemic. It's like, really? We couldn't go to restaurants? Like,
I know,
really?
We
weird? Couldn't do all these things, So it's kind of crazy thinking about it now. But all these clients that had shut down, I had let go. I had fired my highest paying client because it became apparent that they were never going to put in the work. Like it was just pinning it on me. And that's not, I'm a consultant. I'm not your employee. Anyways, long story, I had fired them and I had replaced a bunch of one-on-one clients. And then overnight the pandemic hit and half those clients left me.
Oh my gosh.
And so it was like, oh crap, what's going to happen, And so it was finding as many small business groups as possible to go out and give back to speak to, doing like free stuff, right? To like give back, because there's a lot of small business owners panicking. And then the clients that I had, I was pouring into them because they were panicking. How do we stay open? And so I poured into them, and something really cool happened. Every client that stayed with me ended up having a better 2020 than they had. This one guy who's been in business for 20 years, and he had his best year in 2020, and he had just had his best year in 2019. So he was like, and he was like ready to jump off the bridge at the beginning. So it was like taking these people and helping them pull their businesses together, get clarity and plow through it. It was like, okay, I was having some success with clients before. That was cool, but this is even cooler because there's all this crap going on, and so it gave me a lot of confidence. And then a lot of things started shifting. You put in the work, you create your brand. I spent a lot of time on LinkedIn. LinkedIn became the water cooler. I found a lot of really awesome movers and shakers on LinkedIn. I got to be a part of this group, and I learned a lot from them. I created a lot of content, branding myself, creating the video, did this whole thing. This is episode 95 now.
That's crazy. I've never been so happy to be 95.
It's just crazy, now this is all unfolded and here in the studio, but it was giving back to people, pouring into people, staying consistent with my intentionality in what I'm doing, understanding my sales process and being strategic with my relationships, doing the branding thing on LinkedIn. But it's not just the branding and the content, because it was also all those meetings I did. I didn't have anything else going on. I had like 5 clients. I had no money. I had a lot of time. It's like, if I don't have any money right now, how am I going to utilize my time to get money, right? And it isn't even like I'm going into every meeting. There wasn't any meeting I'm thinking about making money. Every meeting was like, how can I help people? Like, who is this person across from me? And some of them ended up becoming clients, right? But a lot of them ended up becoming connections and collaborations. I wrote a book with a group of people. Like, cool. Like this thing is all unfolded, and I've had some incredible people. Like, it's been a really cool ride. And so now my business is folded where I'm doing fractional sales leadership. So I have a couple bigger small business clients that I sit on their leadership team and develop their sales team.
Awesome.
It's really awesome because it gives me that voice on the leadership team to where it's not just hitting a wall, training and developing and coaching, and then there's no sit, no.
Right.
So that's really cool in the development there. And then one-on-one coaching with coaches, consultants, people that they start their business because they have a purpose, a passion, and expertise. And sales is not one of them.
Right.
They get blocked by that mindset.
And I love that too, because we all are good at something. But not necessarily the same thing.
Yes.
Like my taxes, I'm probably not the best person to do those, right? So I need to hire somebody to do that. And when you are a strategist or a coach or consultant or whatever, to think that you can do everything on your own is, first of all, it's not real.
Yes.
And it's overwhelming, because the things that you're not good at are going to take so much time that it starts, eating away at what you are good at.
this.
Yeah.
I love doing this. There's so many reasons why I started off the videos. It was just branding myself, right?
Yeah.
I was really creating 1 to 3 minute videos, and I had all this hour conversation that I'm like, what do I do with it? Oh, I'll create a podcast. But going through it, I couldn't stop it. Awesome people kept reaching out to me. I had a point. I told everybody out loud, I'm not taking any more guests. I have so much content. I'm so far behind on editing. And there's a point where I was like, I told everybody, I'll never not edit my stuff. I love this. This is great. Like, I found a hobby, like all this stuff. And it's like, I can't do this anymore. Like, like I've got too many other things going on.
Right.
I can't worry about whether my camera's running and all this other stuff. So enter this and enter Grant and, like this amazing, like it takes it to that whole other level, and I'm not doing it.
Right. Right. And it feels good. And this is another program that I developed because of the exact same reason. So when I was working with my clients, we were walking into that LinkedIn program and video and showing them how to do video and do their own and edit it and choose their brand kit and use Canva and all these things and teaching them all that.
Yeah. Yeah.
But then life would get in the way. And so they would start it and it would be great and they would have great response. And then boom. Nothing. And I was devastated because I'm watching them grow and I'm watching them stand out and I'm watching all these things happen for them. And then it's just tanking because they just simply don't have time. And that's when I built that credibility program that I have. And we literally do 1 to 3 minute videos for our clients, do an edit, brand all the templates. We do all the background backup work. So they end up with like 20 pieces of content every single month on LinkedIn. And then that frees up their time so they can do everything else. And what's cool about it is that 9 times out of 10, I've worked with these clients from day one. So I've worked with them on their messaging. I've worked with them on their style and their visible credibility. And we're just moving it into now really showcasing who they are. And it's been great because it takes too much time to do that, right? It's just a time suck.
Well, and I'm coaching. So like I'm coaching people around this strategy of branding themselves. And they're like, I don't want to edit video. I don't want to create that. I don't want to do that. Like, how do you do that? Like that's a lot of work and you get lost in that.
Exactly. And either having somebody on your staff or somebody in your back pocket that can help you do that is major.
Yeah.
I mean, I had to learn that I built this program and all of a sudden I have all these things to do and I can't do it all. So I had to hire somebody.
Yes.
And then I got busy over here and I'm like, now I'm doing all these the back end work and I'm not doing the sales work, which is what I love, right? And I love the coaching part of it. So I had to hire somebody else and that's okay. But it was really, really hard for me to let go because I take great pride, as you do, in the work that you do with your clients. And to not have your hands on all the different parts.
Yeah. How did you make that transition?
I found the right people. Yeah. And that was really interesting. So Karyl, who is my project manager, she's been with me since I started the credibility program. So she works part-time. She knows that program inside and out. She just works quietly in the background, miraculously in the background, and just does a great job. And then the person that I just hired is actually the photographer that I've used for, she did my first set of headshots, 7 years ago?
Wow.
And I just love working with her, and she does things for the right reasons. And, I had an idea in my head about, how great it would be to have an on-staff photographer, videographer. And my own coach said, why don't you just ask her if that's something she would even consider?
Yeah.
And I held that idea for probably a good year and a half. I just held it close to my heart. And then I had unexpected little health issue come up and I had to ask for help. And that was really hard. But what I discovered is that I had the right people surrounding me. Yeah. And so when I felt better, I broached the topic with Michelle and it just was a great time for both of us to come together. So it just has been really, it's great because I know I have the right people, but even better than that, I know that I don't have to be touching every little part of my business.
Yeah.
And so now my challenge is to go back. So here I am, I'm all over LinkedIn, right?
Yeah.
But where I haven't been of late is in person. So networking in person used to be my jam.
Yeah.
I can't even tell you the last time I did networking in person. And so I have made a commitment that, once a week I will go out and I will find somewhere that I have to go. I don't like early mornings.
Yeah.
And a lot of networking is at 8. Well, I'm going to pull my big girl pants up and I'm going to go to the 8:00 networking. You guys all heard it, right?
She's stating it out loud. She's making a declaration.
I made a declaration. So if you don't see me around at 8:00 in the morning at some point in the next couple months, call me up. Call me out on it. But that's really hard, right? Because it's not something that I choose to do. Well, okay. But if you want to move forward, like we talked about earlier, sometimes you have to be uncomfortable. And I am a big girl. I can do it. I can do it. But finding the right people to help you and surround you, and that there's, with great confidence, I could leave for 2 weeks and know that things could be taken care of.
It's huge.
That's a difference maker.
That's huge.
Yeah. Now, my intent is not to do that because, that's not how I work. But it feels good. It feels
so
really
how
good.
did you make that? Because I'd love to know, how did you make that hurdle from, and I think entrepreneurs that are especially solopreneurs, how did you make that hurdle from selling enough to support your team? Does that make sense?
Yeah. A lot of it was that credibility program.
Yeah.
It took off because it solved the problem for a lot of people.
Yeah.
And so because it took off,
it was there.
Yeah.
I
you
had the right thing, the right time, right fit.
Yeah. And again, it was listening to what wasn't being said and observing what was happening and then not happening, and then putting together a program that I thought would solve the problem. And it did solve the problem for quite a few people. It's not for everybody.
Yeah.
But for who I work with, it's a great option. And because there's a lot of moving pieces, which is why it's a good solution, because we all know when you create content, there's editing, there's graphics, there's copy, there's a million and one things to keep track of. And taking it off their plate was really helpful. So we had quite a number of people jump into that program pretty quickly. So I had to have somebody. And then, it was kind of word of mouth. I didn't even tell anybody except for clients that I did this work for an entire year.
Wow.
Yeah. So it's really, really just in the past 6 months that I've really even, been kind of saying to other people, hey, I can do this for you too.
Yeah.
Before it was, these were our clients that were coming in for image impact. And then we would, say, okay, are we ready to stand out on LinkedIn? Are we ready to embrace the power of video? Yes. Okay.
It's like the natural process. They start off here and then you kind of graduate and go through it.
Yeah, exactly. And, the thing is that, especially, I work primarily with female leaders, and oh my God, they're brilliant and they have so much to offer. But sometimes life gets in the way, work gets in the way, confidence gets in the way, all those things get in the way. And I flipping love watching the walls crumble down.
Yeah.
And, starting to just kind of step out into their power and getting the feedback. I think that's one of the biggest things too, is that they're getting feedback on what they're putting out there. So they're getting invited to do things. They're getting clients. They're getting kudos. We had somebody that was, she was invited to speak on personal branding. She is an engineer, but because of what she was putting out there, they are looking at her as a great example of how to personally brand yourself. So not only was she asked by an outside company to come and speak, but her own company has used her as an example of how to personally brand yourself. And I love that. Awesome. I mean, that just makes me so excited and so happy. So that was a really long way, and I don't know, winded answer to say it just naturally came about. Yeah. It naturally came about. And then bringing in Michelle, what I did was I looked at last year, how many photo shoots we did, how many clients I had on Credibility Program, all those things. So how much was I paying out to different people to help me formulate this program? Yeah. And could I bring it internally? Could I bring it in, have everybody come in internal? Was that a positive? Was that a negative? How do you, because all of a sudden they're not, what do we want to say? They're your employees.
Yeah.
I like that feeling. I like having a group of strong people that want to work together. And I like being able to say to a client, Yeah, we have an on-staff videographer and photographer, so things can move quicker for you. We know, like the right hand and the left hand know what's happening. We don't have to worry about things coming from different companies. We're doing it for you.
Yeah.
And that feels really good to me. So my head spins all the time. I'm like, oh, we could do this and this and this.
That's so awesome.
And sometimes, you know this too, like sometimes you have to stop yourself from trying to do everything because in the long run, are you really going to enjoy it? Or do you just want to do it because you're nosy and you want to do everything for everybody? I mean, I truly, like, I wish that I could help everybody and everything.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's not
it's
feasible.
just not everybody. Yeah.
Yeah. It's not feasible. And then it becomes not fun too, right? So you have to pick and choose who your client is, who you want to go for, what things you really want to do, what you do really well so that you're successful.
When you pick your tribe, it's like empowering these female leaders, you know, and that's something that is enjoyable.
Yeah.
I talk about like coaches and consultants and being able to empower these people. Like it's so much fun for me to see them happen because now they're growing their business and they're impacting other people.
Yes.
You know, they're growing other people. And so it's just kind of like that pay it forward, pay it forward. So it's really awesome. I got to kind of, as you were talking, it made me think of this. I got to speak with, in June at an event in Wendy Caverly was speaking there in we were talking and a bunch of people kept on saying, I love what you're doing on LinkedIn. I love all your content. And she was like, oh, I hired this coach. And she's like, and she started talking about you. And I was like, of course, I knew it. Like, that's so awesome. Yeah. But it's and to, you know, kind of a testimony of it's working is I've seen that. I didn't even know, you know, and just it was happening in front of me. So it was really cool. And I'd seen her content. It was obviously really good content.
Yeah. Well, and Wendy is so amazing because she is a can-do person, right?
Yeah.
So she needed a little guidance at the beginning. And then, you know, we worked for a good long time together. And then she was able to offboard from us doing it and have a process so she could do it on her own. Yeah. Some people can do that. Some people can't. Yeah. Yeah. But it's nice to be able to work with both sides of people because I look at her stuff all the time. I'm like, you go, girl. Like, I'm happy that she's able to do that, right? Yeah. And then I love the people that I've worked with for 3, 4, 5 years, and we just keep plugging along. Yep. You know, there's always something, you know, that we can do together, and I love that too.
I do too. It's a great mix. I have clients that, you know, is like 2, 3, 4, 5 months, you know, just a short period, and then they're out, boom, they're out doing their own thing and growing, and it's like I can see that it's kind of like a little bit of a legacy. You watch it happen, and then there are clients that I've worked with for 3 years, 4 years, right? That, you know, it was a lot longer, and it was for this particular thing and watching it grow from 1 employee to like 15, right? And like, you know, watching it grow into a multi-million-dollar business, like that was like watching a child grow up. Yes.
Oh my God, that's so fun. And it's funny because my very first client that I had when I first opened my doors is still a client to today.
That's amazing.
And, you know, I've watched her grow through different companies. I've watched her, you know, move out of state. I've watched her family grow. And it's fun because I still get to be part of it, you know. And again, we've just worked on different aspects of image and personal brand, you know, throughout the whole thing. You know, I've made a couple trips to Chicago to work with her. She came in here last time, and it's like family, you know. People become family as well.
It's absolutely It's all about like those relationships talking about at the beginning, but you were like that with Dan, right?
Yes.
And Dan actually was a guest on Coffee and Grit. And so he shouted you out in our episode, actually talking about how the very thing, how he was able to, you know, he had a star pupil, and he's like talking about, I'm like, wait a minute, who? And he's like, so, you know, and then you're able to take it, learn from it, and then be able to go out and help other people do it.
Yeah. And what's really cool is that this is all coming full circle because I reached out to Dan the other day because I have somebody that wants to do a little bit extra on some of their videos. And it's something that I don't do. We don't do that in-house, but Dan does. Right. So for me to be able to go back to Dan, I know that I have a trusted person that I know is going to do right by my client, that we can work together. I'm pumped up because it does come full circle.
It does.
Yeah.
Well, and we talk about it coming full circle because it's super funny because I remember her sunburn conversation. Yeah. You were talking about, I started working with this guy and he's showing me how to set up my videos. Yeah. And so and then watching that, it's cool. Like even watching it, even though we haven't sat down like this in a couple of years, like watching everything, it's like you can see people's lives and what they're doing. And so watching that come full circle and then having the conversation with Dan, it's like, it's so cool. It's like watching your life from afar.
Yeah, it's very fun. And it was funny the other day, you guys sent me, you and Heather sent me a text with a picture of you guys. I'm like, why are Jason and Heather together? I don't even know that I know that you knew one another.
Yeah.
But here, both of you are, I believe, in fractional positions for the same company.
Yeah.
Which, again, 4, 5, 6 years ago, neither one of you were even doing that type of work to that extent. And then for you to be together.
Isn't it crazy?
Like, that was awesome.
It's so crazy.
Yeah.
So I think so this is like the connections of things. You connected me to Michelle Knierim? No?
I don't know.
Okay. I think you did.
Okay.
Do you know Michelle?
I don't know her.
Okay.
I know.
So maybe you didn't.
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, we're connected, but I don't know her well, so that's why I don't know.
Okay.
Yeah.
So Michelle connected me to Heather, and we had met, but like when I had got onboarded, came on, and then my client was looking for a marketing person. Like, we think we found this person. She's awesome. She's amazing. Oh, I'm like, what's her name? They're like, Heather Doring, Heather McGlone now. But I'm like, oh my God, I know Heather briefly, not very well, but it's been cool getting to know her more, working together fractionally. We work with an amazing, amazing client, like one of those like good to great type companies that they're a family business, 40-year family business. The guy who runs the business now is the son or the second generation that just took the business and exploded it from this little family business to this huge business. And so I work with the son who's the sales guy. He's the third generation now. And it's like watching that third generation, watching what they're building, and again, being part of that legacy. I told Danny, like, I don't know how long I'll be here in this position, but being able to look back at you guys 20 years from now, where you're at and where him and his brother are at in leadership, and they're the future of the company, and to watch it grow and watch it be a part of that. It's just, I love doing what I do.
I love that. And I love listening to you talk about it because you exude that passion and energy for it. And you can tell that you don't just do it to collect the check. You do it because it's important.
Oh, just collecting a check is miserable.
Yeah, it is. It is. And oh my gosh, there's been times where, I've said, I just have to step away. Like you were talking about, you had to fire your biggest, money client. Yeah. It's not the right person.
It wasn't worth it.
You. No. Yeah. I remember when I first started my business and I worked with stay-at-home moms and I worked with retirees and I worked with business people. And these two groups, even though they're great, they just weren't me.
Yes.
I thought that was so hard, like having to dial in.
Yeah.
But when you dial in, that's when you start growing.
How did you realize your group?
Well, first of all, I got frustrated because they just wanted to do one thing. Yeah. And then they thought that was it. And the one thing was just a step in the direction to move forward. Now, I guess I kind of need to reel that in a little bit. I've been in the position of my clients, right? Yeah, where you kind of forget a little bit about yourself. You put family first, your kids are first, everybody's first except for you, right? And that's okay. And I'm glad I would not give up one thing and being able to be there for my boys. But eventually, it's time for you. And sometimes you get to that point and you think, I don't even know who I am anymore. I don't know really where to start. I don't know where I want to go. It's a little bit confusing. So because I felt that way, I had been the mom of young boys, right? And I had been there. I had a mom who was a retiree and I, with the utmost respect for her. So I didn't want to leave anybody out. But I soon became very frustrated because I thought, well, you did this, but now where are you going? What are you going to do next? And there was a client that needed headshots. Mm-hmm. And so I arranged that, and I was part of the process of doing the headshots and the personal brand. And I was like, this is it. This is cool. This is cool because now we're working on so much more. And when I first started, I got pinned as a stylist because I named my business Revision Style and Image. Okay, well, of course, then they thought you were a stylist. Yeah. And so that name, that iteration of my business was very short-lived because I didn't want that, right? I wanted images about appearance, behavior, communication, digital presence. There's a lot to it, right? And that personal branding portion of it is kind of how you shout out your image. And, so it was kind of by default. And I mentioned that I had this one client that was my very first client. And so when I first started with her, she was a young mom. She had just finished law school, first time in a law firm. And I went and I did her closet, and then we went shopping. We did all these things. And then she needed more and I had more to give. And it was like the perfect marriage. It was so awesome because we kind of grew together for a little bit.
Yeah.
And again, 6 years later, 7 years later, we still work together.
It's amazing.
Yeah. And it is amazing. But there was one other person that did the headshots first that I was like, oh, okay, that's it. Right. But then her name is Irina. Irina was the person that really, can I say the word muse?
Yes, absolutely.
It sounds so weird, but she really was the person that I thought, this is who I want to help. She's smart. She's a go-getter. She's got, goals that she wants to accomplish. She's open-minded. She is looking for help. She is, she's just on an upward trajectory, and I loved it. I love that she was so open to move forward, and that when she would move forward, great things would happen. And that just was so special to me. And so that relationship kind of opened my eyes to who really I love to help. And here we are today.
There's so many key things in what you said there. And I asked that question because I oftentimes we're best working with people like ourselves, right? Or like you talked about, like, you love working with power women, strong women. And I was like, you, right? There's you, like there's you in that mirror. And it's like you going through these experiences and you figuring it out, right? Like those are now you can uniquely help these other people because you've been through those same experiences.
Yeah. It's interesting. What's really interesting, and I think this is hilarious, is that I am not engineer minded at all. I'm married to an engineer. And I would say 80% of my clients are engineers, or as I like to call them, recovering engineers. So they may have gone from an engineer to a lawyer. They might go from engineer into sales, but they start in that engineering pocket, if you will, which is so strange to me because that's so not like me. But I'm wondering if my dad was very engineer minded. I'm wondering if I just, I track that because we're a good balance for one another. I don't know, but...
Well, because you've dealt with your whole life.
Could be.
Your dad, your husband. You're attracted to your husband probably for same qualities, kind of alignment.
They keep me grounded.
They keep you grounded.
They keep me grounded.
We need that. Like my wife is opposite in thinking of me, and we work because of that. You know, like I'm the visionary. I've got all these ideas.
Yeah.
She's like, okay, let's figure out the plan for it. You know, like there's got to be some steps here.
Plan.
And like I've got some questions. And I was like, okay, but we need that opposite.
Yeah.
But because you're so used to, I don't know. It seems like you have an answer there.
Yeah. I mean, it's something that works. So I think I understand the language. I think I understand where they come from. And maybe because I'm not so much in a box, that maybe it's fun to work with somebody that can push you outside of, the boundaries that you're used to.
Yeah.
And we just happen to work. But I thought that was so funny. And I didn't realize it was happening for a long time. And I think it was over COVID, where I used to have, I had my office in my house at that time, and I had a piece of paper right smack dab in front of me, and I'd put everybody's name on it, and whatever my notes were, so I could look at it at a glance. And one day I looked up and I thought, engineer. And I thought, there's something happening here. I'm not sure what it is, but yeah, I just thought that was super funny.
It's like you go out there and you be your authentic self, and you attract the people that are, those people, people that are meant to be attracted to you are attracted to you.
Right.
It's like I've saw so many commonalities between my clients, and it's like similar things were popping up.
Yes.
Similar things in our conversation.
Yeah.
It's like,
well,
what is it?
Yeah. And that's where, again, the power of LinkedIn and the power of social media. We'll keep to LinkedIn because that's our jam, I think, both of us.
Yes.
But when you are not being consistent with a message that you put out like that, that's when it gets goofy, right? And that's when you start getting people that you don't want to work with, because maybe your tone of voice, or maybe the way that you shared something, or the way that you showed up is off enough. And it's interesting. I had a conversation with a potential client the other day, and she was saying, I'm not attracting the people that I hope to attract.
Yeah. Yeah.
And, there's a lot to dig out there. What are your goals? Who's your audience? What's the perception the audience has of you?
Yes.
What's the perception you have of yourself? What profession are they in versus what you're, where you are? And are you willing to, lessen the gap or not? There's some things that you should do. You have to stay authentic to yourself. Another buzzword, just like pivot.
Yeah.
But at the same time, if you are not being fair to yourself and fair to how you're willing to show up, it gets confusing for everybody. So, it's probably good to be able to look at your client list and say, oh, there's a lot of commonalities here.
It's right? Huge. And that's what I do with my clients in the sales work, is diving in, looking at the data. Stories are data with soul. I love tricking my clients into, I got it from Brene Brown. I can't even it. So I was listening to a Brene Brown book one day, and I'm like, oh my God, that's it right there. Because I would sit down with my clients, and I sit down with my clients and I ask them, tell me a story. Tell me a story about your favorite client. Yeah. And they tell me this whole story. And it's like, I learned how they met, who introduced them, what their challenge was. I learned, did they have any objections in the beginning? Yeah. Was there any kind of, challenges trying to get them to be a client? And then once they became a client, what happened? What was that progress? What was that change? What was that impact? And then what happened then? It's like, what were their pain points? How did you help them? Right. Now we break down their whole entire sales process. We understand where they got them, so we understand where they can go find more of them. Yes, there's so much data in that story.
Yeah. Oh, I like that. That's really smart. And what's interesting too is that so many of us that do different things all do the same thing.
Yes.
And we take that information and we disseminate it and use it in different ways. But, you're asking for the story. I asked for the story. We're trying to unearth what's going on, right? And there's another person that I really love following on LinkedIn, Laura Karyl. And I think I said your name right, Laura. Apologize if I didn't say it right. So she's a person I've never met in person. I've never even been on a call with her, but I love her content. I look forward to it every day. I love her emails. They come every day. I probably won't be a client of hers because I don't think I fit where she is. Maybe one day something else, right? But I appreciate her and I will recommend her.
Yeah.
And I think she's fascinating and fun and all those good things. But she was talking about the same thing, is that, you have to understand where your client is and you have to understand what their language is.
Yes.
And when you understand their language and then you can provide a solution in their language, they're more likely to tag onto it. And as a salesperson, if you can do that with your sales staff for them to understand who they're selling to, oh my God, that's powerful. That's money in your pocket.
It's breaking down. Empathy is the key. Yeah. And I talk about the salespeople are like, oh, they won't respond back to me. Well, if you start to be empathetic and understand what they're going through in life, it's not accepting the no. It's not accepting they're not calling you back. It's understanding what's going on in their life so you can bust through that wall, right?
Yeah.
So you can be different, and you have to understand it from that aspect. You have to tell that story to understand what is going on in their life. And most of the time you're going to understand and know what's going on in their life because you're dealing with other people. They're doing the same jobs as they're doing. So you can kind of generalize and understand.
Yeah.
You can pick the brain of somebody that's doing a similar job. Hey, what are your roles and responsibilities like? What did the day look like for you?
Yes. Yeah, because that's important, because what does your day look like? Okay, well, it sucks because I have this, and this. And you're thinking, all right, what I did here was these things I can help with.
Yeah.
What I didn't hear are these things. And then you can ask questions about the things you didn't hear about. Are they pertinent? Are they not pertinent? What's the story there?
Yes.
Are you digging deeper? It's interesting because, like I said, my own coach is all about just ask more questions. And it's conversational.
Yeah.
You're not prying. It's literally conversational. And the more that you understand, the more you can determine if you're the right person to help them out. And maybe you are, and maybe you're not.
Maybe you're not.
But if you're not, think of all these people, circle back to LinkedIn, that you can
connect
recommend.
People with and recommend.
Yeah. I mean, I'm not a sales, I'm good at sales, right? by default in my own business. I have background in sales, but I have no desire to be a sales leader and a sales manager, but I know who to go to.
And when you connect people like that, it takes that relationship to a whole new level. And I'm at a point where I'm not selling in the sense of like, I'm not making cold calls.
Right.
I'm not calling people. I set up meetings to talk to people because most of my stuff is referrals. I've built relationships with strategic people that then send me, oh, hey, I have a client that needs you, or hey, you know, like, so it's like I leave a meeting and I have somebody that's going to connect with me, but it's built like that purposely.
Right.
And everybody can do that.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And then to be able to use a platform like LinkedIn to continue to reach out for new things too. I had somebody the other day say, well, all of my business is referral based.
Yeah.
And I said, well, that's great, but it's not a sales tactic because you are depending on them.
You're depending on it. Yes.
To refer you.
Yes.
And you have no control over their day. But boy, is that a funnel that you've got to have. I mean,
Yes.
if you're not receiving referrals, then from an image and personal brand point of view, you probably have some work to do.
That's it. Yes. Yeah. Image, personal brand, the work you're doing, all of it ties in because you'll get more referrals if you're doing good work, right? If you're not doing good work, you're probably not going to get the referral. So that ties into it.
Right. And you have to stay top of mind. If you're not putting out content where you are in front of people, right? I mean, LinkedIn is a living billboard. You have an opportunity to have a free living billboard for your business. And if you're not taking advantage of that, you're missing out because your competitor is doing exactly that. So if you're depending on referrals, but yet you're not ever putting yourself out there, so you're not top of mind to the people that are referring, missing the boat.
You said something earlier and it made me think of this. I think tying it home is when you don't respond to people's messages, they fill in the story. When you don't put yourself out there, they fill in the story. They create the story. You know, like if you create a inconsistent message, they'll create this rest of the story and the gap. They'll fill in those missing pieces and you just won't get business or credibility.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. There's so many pieces again. In what you do and what I do, you know, they tie in so beautifully together. You can be a great salesperson, but if you're not, you have no credibility. If you have no presence digitally, if you walk into a room and you look like a mess and it's not what they expected, that's a problem, right? Your headshot says one thing and you walk in looking a whole different way. That can be a nightmare.
So, and this is funny, and again, tying things home, because this is another thing that you probably don't know about. When you spoke at the WWA event, you did this really cool exercise where you had everybody walk around the room and people put down like just one word on people's back, like what they thought of that person, right? So it's just complete image. It's you don't maybe not have to even talk to that person.
First impression only.
First impression, just writing down, and it was really awesome. I had all these really cool things in my back. Like I can't remember them now. Just the other day, it popped up and it was like in my memories or whatever. Oh, cool. But literally, so I posted like this picture of like this event I was at, and this is what was on my back. And one of this guy commented on it, liked it, and then sent me an email. It was like, hey, I need you to work with my sales team. And I literally worked with that client for 3 years, a little over 3 years. And we built their business from a $300,000 a year business to $2.2 million.
Wow.
And so, but they reached out we talked about, this is bringing it all home, right?
Yeah.
Because I had spoke at an event. He met me there. We had some interaction back and forth. And then he saw me on that social media post. And then he saw those things that people were saying about me in a first. Yeah. And we didn't talk about this, but I'm just thinking of the psychology.
It triggers,
of that triggered. It was, if he was standing on a fence, he saw what other people are judging me on or what other people see in me. And he's like, okay, I'm going to reach out to him.
Yes.
And it ended up being a relationship that we just transitioned for him to, he hired a sales director and is moving to another level, which is awesome.
My gosh.
So
that's fantastic. Yeah. When you show up both in person or online, it should be consistent. What are you leaving people with? What's the 1 to 3 adjectives that they remember about you? And when I work with clients, I mean, that's a big deal that we work on, the messaging, what do we want? And I do. Let me be strong in that.
Yes.
A 360 approach. So we look at you as a whole, and we want to see what other people look at, and not judge you, but perceive you as a whole too. So I'll actually I call it a modified 360. I actually have conversations with professionals in your sphere to find out, appearance, behavior, communication, digital presence. What are you doing well? What are some opportunities that you could be tapping into? How do people perceive you? They may say to me, Jason is the sweetest, kindest person. Now, those are great words, right?
Yeah.
But they might not be your words.
Yeah.
If you were to describe yourself or to have somebody describe you, what words would you want them to use? Sweet and kind may not be the top of the list, right?
Yeah.
But then we understand what's happening and we can make some changes, subtle changes in visible credibility or confidence or whatever to change that message, and change that perception. And then that's when your confidence goes up, the confidence of those around you go up. You're a salesperson, you walk into the room and you know exactly what's going on and you know exactly what you're going to leave somebody with. And that feels pretty darn good.
But it's just a huge test. I remember writing down what they thought their words were and describing themselves, and then people going around. It's like mismatching, right?
Yeah. And, I do different experiments now with people, and not experiment, but what do I want to say? Exercises with people now. We do it a little bit differently, but the results are the same, right?
Yeah.
You could either, however you perceive yourself, you might find that people perceive you exactly in that way, which is great, right?
Yeah.
But you might find that there's a disconnect, and if there's a disconnect, is a way that you're being perceived something that maybe you should latch onto. Maybe that's a great thing. Maybe it's an opportunity that you didn't even know that you had, right?
Yeah.
And if it's totally different, then you've got, again, an opportunity to close that gap or to maybe change who you're trying to attract.
Playing your strengths, because that's your authentic self, right?
Yeah. But by the same token, sometimes people just don't understand how they're coming across, and they just don't even know it. And there is a difference between being authentic and being sloppy and not caring. Those are very different things. And that's a hard conversation to have with people sometimes.
Yeah.
We're not looking for perfect. Nobody wants perfect. We don't care about perfect, but we do care if we feel like the person that we're talking to cares.
Yes.
If we feel like they're in tune to what's going on, if they're there to, help with the problem rather than be the problem, right? So there are different things that come up that can be distracting. Look, we don't want to go to our closet, get dressed, and then all day long feel conscientious about how we're looking, and then we don't do a good job in every other aspect of our life. Who cares what you're wearing? That's the way it should be, right?
But if you're showing up and you're wrinkled, if you're showing up and, you're untucked and you feel that mentally.
Yeah.
It's just like showing up for the Zoom call and it being blurry.
Yeah.
You're behind now.
Yeah.
It's hard enough to sell.
Exactly.
It's hard enough to sell in a perfect environment, to show up and have to apologize for these factors that you can so easily control.
Exactly. And, you can overdress, you can underdress, right? So you can show up and make people uncomfortable because, that's just not what you should be doing at all. I have a client who has more blue collar clients, even though what she does is very high end, financially motivated, not financially motivated, but in the financial world, right? So she is working with lots of money for these people, but the people on a day-to-day basis are more casual. They're jeans and t-shirts.
Yeah.
Now she can show up in a jeans and t-shirt, but then you look like part of the gang, right? But if you show up in a conservative blue suit, now you're not approachable. There's that happy medium in there. And that's the other part that I love working with my clients on, is finding what that happy medium is, right? So the visible credibility piece, when you walk in the room, are you understood for what you're hoping?
Yeah.
Or have you done a disservice to yourself by overdressing, underdressing, not being prepared, whatever the case may be? And that's a strategy piece, especially in client-facing roles and in sales, that is often forgotten. And especially by companies whose employees, here they're client-facing, right?
Yeah.
They're the first line of defense. They're also the first line of first impressions for the company. And are they doing a good job? I don't know. Sometimes you got to take a look at that.
Take a look at it.
Yeah. So many things.
This is why we could sit out and get a sunburn.
Really, do we have the heat lamps going on?
I want to take just a few minutes because I talking to Heather, again, not talking for 3 years. I'm watching you. I'm seeing you kick ass with your business and pivot and all that kind of stuff and seeing what you're doing. And then she starts like telling me this story about what you've been going through.
Oh, yeah.
And you mentioned having some health concerns and stuff like that. But tell me what's been going on.
Yeah. Oh my God, this was so crazy. Okay. So I'm a doer, not a sitter. So in the fact that I'm a doer, sometimes I ignore things that maybe I shouldn't ignore because I don't want to do nothing.
Yeah.
And I don't think I was listening to my body very closely. And the only reason I paid a little bit more attention was because I literally was supposed to go to Mexico, come home for a couple days, and then go to Arizona to visit my older son. And I thought to myself, I just didn't feel right. So my stomach felt really hard. My clothes weren't fitting properly anymore. So I was trying to get some clothes for Mexico. This is women out there. I know you can relate. Literally the bathing suit that I wore in like June or July didn't fit me anymore. And even 2 sizes up didn't fit me. And I was like, what? I mean,
what is going on?
I understand. I am a woman of a certain size and curves, but still I know how to dress myself and I know what I should wear. And it was just a mess. So my confidence was kind of tanking from that point of view because I felt uncomfortable, but I didn't know why. I would eat, I'd start to wheeze. That was new. There were all these just really little weird things. So anyway, because I was going to go out of the country, I thought maybe I should just go to the doctor. I'm not good with the doctors. I'm not a good patient. Let's just say that. But I thought I should probably go. And I went in and they said, oh, you probably have an ulcer or what was the other thing? I don't even remember. But I thought an ulcer. I am not much of a worrier.
Yeah.
I'm not buying into this ulcer thing. So they sent me for blood tests. Blood tests came back basically fine. But when I called into the doctor's office, I was not happy with the way that the doctor's appointment was handled. I mean, it just was, I felt like they were just checking off the boxes and just giving me an answer that was easy. So when I called back, I made mention of it and I said, I'm just not really happy. And this is my theory. And this kind of comes back to branding, right? So I went with a health group that, in retrospect, every single appointment, every doctor's appointment, every nurse I talked to, every customer service person was a 4.5 or a 5 star. I mean, they were absolutely phenomenal, except for the first doctor that I went to.
Ooh.
And he was new to the practice. So my theory is, I can't prove it, but my theory is that when I called in to talk about the blood tests, I made mention. I said, I just wasn't really happy. And lo and behold, the doctor called me the next day. And I feel like, I hope that what happened was it went up the chain of events and they said, this guy isn't, living up to our expectations. You need to do more.
Yeah.
And thank God he did, because they sent me in for some more tests. And, I'm making this a very long story, but really what happened was I had a massive cyst, growth, whatever you want to say. It's called mucinous ovarian cancer. I had this major thing in my belly, like literally encompassing my entire abdomen, and everything happened extremely fast after that. Needless to say, I didn't go to Mexico. Instead of going to Arizona, I was having surgery, and they didn't initially think that it would be cancerous. So they thought, okay, we'll just remove it. But I literally have a scar from just under my breast all the way down because they had to open me up enough to be able to get the whole thing out. Because if it broke and if it was cancerous, then you've got a big problem.
Oh, shit.
So right down the center.
Oh.
So this bad boy was 14 pounds, and I think it was like 30 by 24 by 20 centimeters.
Holy shit.
Yeah, holy shit. I'm like, I've been carrying around twins and I had no idea. No wonder I was wheezing. No wonder I didn't feel very good. No wonder my clothes didn't fit me properly.
Yeah.
I literally was looking like I was pregnant. And that's not happening, right? I've already had my kids. I don't need that. But the point is that a couple things. Number one, I'm very, very lucky in how quickly things moved. Very lucky because
Good for you for saying I'm not happy.
well, I mean, thank God. I mean, I guess I was just in that mode and I was trying to get things done. And I something was just nagging at the back of me that something wasn't right. Something wasn't right. And
You knew there's that intuition, right?
but you know what, Jason, if I hadn't had that trip planned out of the country, I don't know if I still would be just ignoring.
Yeah.
I mean, really, I mean, literally,
Yeah.
I ignored.
Yeah.
I ignored because now, I still get tired early evening. I've had to let go of some things that have been really hard. Like, so, taking the lead on some extra organizational things. I can't do it. I have enough energy for my family. I have enough energy for my business. I've had to bring in extra help, as we talked about before.
Yep.
I kind of missed third quarter, right? So I had the credibility program, which is great. That kept going, but any plotting and planning for moving forward was stagnant. I mean, because I couldn't do anything. And I mean, even now, my incision doesn't hurt anymore or anything like that, but the area around it is still healing. They cut totally through you, and a scar that's 20 inches. It was a lot.
That's a lot. Yeah.
It was a lot. And then I had to, there was a time where I thought, I'm going to lose my business. Like because I didn't know what stage well, first of all, I didn't know it was cancerous, so then they call and they say, well, we found cancer cells. And then you sit there for 10 days until you can get to the oncologist. And then they tell you it's stage 1A, which thank the Lord, right?
Yeah.
That was a little bit confusing because there's nothing else you can do. You're done. You're done. So it was almost backwards. Like I didn't find like a little mark and then they say, we're going to go into surgery and remove it. I had this thing.
It was already out.
Right. Which was really confusing for me because it was hard to wrap around. Am I really done? Like I'm okay now? Because they don't say that. They say, well, you have to come back every 3 to 4 months for the next year. Right. And so, it's weird. And I really had to find a mind shift, and I had to find some inner strength to say, I am not going to just sit in the unknown. I'm going to move forward, and I'm going to own this. And I know that every day my energy will come back a little bit more. I know that I have the right people around me to allow me to succeed. And if I need to step back, that's okay, because I have the people that can help me, right? And like I said, it's hard because I've had to let some things go that I didn't anticipate. And by letting them go, I've put the burden on other people. And that's really hard to do. But I also understand that it was a major operation and a major mind game, really. Because when somebody says to you, you have cancer, it doesn't matter if you're stage 1A or you're stage 4. In that moment, it's scary as you know what.
Oh, yeah.
And then, yes, I am very lucky. And I would never compare myself to anybody that's going through chemo or radiation. I don't have to do that. And I'm so grateful. I watched my mom go through cancer, so I understand that too.
The chemo and the radiation part.
Yeah. But I also have to be cognizant of my own feelings and my own insecurities. And one of the best things that I did was that the healthcare actually offered the ability to talk to a counselor.
Oh, yeah.
Which was huge.
Yeah.
And again, I'm always like, oh no, I can do it myself. But being able to talk to her and relay the fact that it was kind of messing me up, that I was just told I have cancer, but now you're not going to do anything about it. And she's like, no, you have to understand, you had treatment. Your treatment came in a major abdominal surgery and the removal of a massive watermelon size, growth. You had treatment. And I thought, oh, I just didn't have it in the order that normally it would be there.
It's out of the box.
Yeah. But honestly, Jason, if she had not told me that, I still probably would be struggling. I still would be struggling. And I'm so grateful. It's been a weird thing. It's even hard to like think back to, I mean, this was just in October.
Yeah. Yeah.
Just not even 4 months ago this happened. And come a long way, baby. I don't know. But I am so thankful for friends and family and again, having the right colleagues and the right clients.
Yeah.
Because let me tell you, these clients were a godsend. And I slowly walked back into business, and that was the best part because I love them so much that their energy gave me energy.
Yeah.
And that was really, really important to me. I mean, I've been really lucky that even through the height of COVID, I still got to do some in-person stuff, taking precautions, of course, right? But I need and love that energy so much.
Yeah. Me too.
Yeah. So anyway, so that was, I mean, a long story, but anybody that's listening, if you do not feel right, go ahead and just ask for some answers. And if you're not given the answers that you think are right, go back and ask again. Mandate. I know that, I've got another appointment coming up and I'm a little bit hesitant because I don't feel like what they're going to do, what they have scheduled to do is really what I need done based on what I know about this disease now. Mm-hmm. And I just need to be prepared with more questions, right? Because, the unknown is scary and you don't know what you don't know. And sometimes you can have too much knowledge, but it's not the right knowledge. So finding that balance.
The internet, you can find anything.
Yeah.
You can convince yourself of anything.
100%.
Yeah.
And this type of cancer is pretty rare for ovarian cancer. It's only like 6% of ovarian cancer is this type. It's mucinous ovarian cancer. And so I'm in part of this great Facebook group, but you have to go in that knowing that everybody's situation is different. And not only that, but in different countries, they react differently.
Oh, yeah.
So Canada to the US to, Australia to whatever, everybody not completely different, but there are some different parameters. So it's been interesting. And it's not a journey that I wanted to go on, but it's a journey that I'm okay with now because it makes me a little bit more empathetic to even what happened with my mom. I mean, I knew what she was going through from a caregiver perspective, but I never understood some of the other things that she was dealing with that, now I wish I knew. I wish I could go back and be more empathetic or more helpful on some fronts. I can't do that. I talk to her at night sometimes. She can hear.
Yeah. Yes.
But yeah, it's been a crazy, crazy thing. But positive attitude, people around you that can make a difference, and gaining your own knowledge and literally sticking up for what you feel inside. Do it, people. Do it. Absolutely.
And then lastly, and that's just the empathy, and this has really been our conversation this whole entire time is like going through it, going through it and being able to help other people, and it's like now there's good stuff that comes out of bad things. Yeah. You talk about even your employee, having your team now, that comes out of that. Yeah.
And that's a conscious decision, right? Because anytime you get bad news regarding your health or many other things, you literally can just kind of crumble and just, throw your hands up. It would be very easy. Yeah. Very easy to do that. And that's okay to do that for a little bit. You got to let yourself live through it, right? Let your emotions flood, yeah. Yeah, you have to honor that a little bit. But I am not a person that is going to feel good by feeling bad, and just kind of soaking in it for too long. I'm not good at staying home for multiple days in a row. Yeah. So all that I had to say to myself, put your big girl pants on again and go and do. And again, know what you can do and what you can't do. And even now, like if I know that I have a big thing to do at night, I need to take it easy during the day. Yeah. Okay. Well, I get it. Fine. Got it. Check mark. Check mark.
Yeah.
So be nice to yourself, people.
Karyl, man, I'm so happy that you were able to come out here in the studio and we were able to have this conversation. Thank you so much.
Oh my God. Thank you for the invitation. And it's been way too long.
Way too long.
And before we leave, we're going to make a coffee
Absolutely.
date.
We are going to do that. Absolutely.
Yes.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.